Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and we're going to talk about the polyhedrals and the use of the polyhedrals. So the polyhedral dice, what do I mean by that? I mean the D4, the D6, the D8, the D10, the D12, the D20, and the D10 that has 10, 20, 30, 40. I think that's called the percentile D10. And the D10s together roll the percentile. And it's really interesting. So I was thinking about these dice, and the reason why was what I saw in Candela Obscura. So basically, this was the case before the 2023 Manic Panic, but, the 2023 OGL Crisis. But since then, every indie, every OSR is in direct competition with Dungeons & Dragons. They're either there because the creators are frustrated with Hasbro and are looking to topple it. A good example of that is Tales of the Valiant. Tales of the Valiant was built ground up. It had no other purpose but to literally, push Dungeons & Dragons off the mountain, right? Like that. Tales of the Valiant is the cutting edge of D&D Begone, right? Like that is. In my humble opinion, Tales of the Valiant is the most dangerous tabletop role-playing game that has ever been created from the perspective of, if it's successful, I think if it achieves the goals that were set for it, I think it will literally destroy the entire tabletop role-playing game industry. It'll be in tatters within 2-3 years because it's pretty bad. So yeah, very, very interesting. So you have the polyhedrals in place. So Candela Obscura comes out, and it's in direct competition, right? It's looking to allow Critical Role to get some space away from Dungeons & Dragons. And there was a ton of coverage, about this, about Critical Role moving away for Dungeons & Dragons, which is a little bit ridiculous because there's their main bread and butter is still running on Dungeons & Dragons 100%. There's not definitely a thing, right? And literally, the head of Critical Role is still writing D&D canon books, right? So Candela Obscura comes out with these D6s, right? And it doesn't use anything else. It's just D6s. And what's really fascinating is, when you look at it, you're like, why would anyone do this? Why would you go down this road? This is not even remotely helpful, right? This is... And it's really shocking to me why anyone thinks that using all D6s is helpful or useful or better than the polyhedrals. There's a tradition there. And I think, overall there's this analog issue where when you move to topple Dungeons & Dragons, when you move to compete against Dungeons & Dragons, when you make a tabletop role-playing game, Dungeons & Dragons is still the wall that you push off of. And so the question is, why would, it's so much clearly worse. And I think this is one of the things that really is interesting. The only group in the world, the only tabletop role-play game in the world that has ever done better than Dungeons & Dragons, which came out in 1974 when it comes to dice, is Fantasy Flight Games. They actually created the narrative dice system, dice with all custom symbols. And I do think that is an innovation, and it is literally better than what Dungeons & Dragons has done. And the interpretive dice pool is the only dice set that has ever surpassed Dungeons & Dragons. However, even that retains the same number and the same shapes of the polyhedrals, still adhering to the tradition of Dungeons & Dragons. So I think if you make a TTRPG, use every polyhedral shape, and that's going to be your best foot forward. Right? I just don't think there's any way to beat that. That's my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion. When you get in the comments and send your traffic, please consider subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.